think what's going to go into place is what did he know and did he try to cover it up? For example, when he found out, the police had confiscated her phone and he provided her with a new one, what did he know and when did he know it about when she was making purchases at Walmart to buy the burner phone?
So that was the voice of former CIA officer Tracy Walder speaking to News Nation on the Rush Hour broadcast on Wednesday, discussing the significance of the warrant, this latest warrant, looking into the email and what authorities hope to find. I'll put a link to that in the description. But Walder is absolutely right in asking this question: what did Colin Strickland know, and did he try to cover something up? Another question that has arisen recently is, where did Colin Strickland get the $450,000 that he gave to Caitlin as investment capital? I've been thinking about this for a few days and I've come up with a theory. Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started. So this episode is part one in an analysis where we're going to try to get to know Colin Strickland's identity, his psychology, in a bit of a deeper way. So if you think about the individuals in this case, in this love triangle, there's Mo Wilson, there's Caitlin Armstrong, and Colin Strickland. Well, we know about Mo Wilson's backstory. We know who her parents and siblings were. We also know the same about Caitlin. We know about her parents and siblings. But we know next to nothing about Strickland's parents. Even his Wikipedia page says nothing about his family besides that he grew up on a farm. Obviously, as a 35-year-old, Strickland's parents are likely to still be alive, perhaps in their 60s or early 70s. But it's also possible that Strickland inherited a large sum of money. Intertextually, in the Suzanne Morphew case, Suzanne inherited a similar sum, almost $500,000 after her mother passed away and shortly before she disappeared. It's also possible Strickland inherited something after the passing of a grandparent, which is the same as occurred in the Lacey Peterson case. You may or may not know that Lacey inherited over $100,000 in jewelry in the fall of 2002, just a few months before she disappeared. The threadbare financial narrative reveals just how little we know about the fabric of this case. But what we do know about Caitlin was that she previously ran away from paying for a Botox bill. Although we know very little about Colin Strickland thus far, what we do know is that subsequent to the incident, Strickland seemed to be playing the narrative both ways. What I mean is, he's described his relationship with Mo as quote-unquote strictly platonic, while apparently saying the same about Caitlin. What he said to her was that we were only in a relationship because of shared business interests. Remember that. So who was he in love with if he wasn't in love with Caitlin or Mo? And if Strickland had been playing the narrative both ways after the incident, what about before? Now, we know that after the event in January, this was in a cycling event in Arkansas, Mo Wilson allegedly texted Strickland, and this was the exact text. She said, "This weekend was strange for me, and I just want to know what's going on. If you just want to be friends, in brackets, seems to be the case, then that's cool. But I'd like to talk about it because honestly my mind has been going in circles and I don't know what to think." So did Caitlin know what to think? Strickland said regarding Caitlin, quote, "We were clearly going our separate ways, but we just didn't get enough inertia to separate," end quote. But Strickland's text on the night of the incident to Caitlin suggests he is reporting in, and that implies he knew what was expected of him. One of the texts that he sent to Armstrong was at 8:36 p.m. on the night of the incident, and the text read, "Hey, exclamation mark, are you out, question mark. I went to drop some flowers for Alison at her son's house up north, and my phone died. Heading home unless you have another food suggestion." And then he sent two more messages after that, one at 8:43 p.m. and another at 9:21 p.m. And is it true that Strickland had no idea about a different side to Caitlin's personality, specifically the jealous side? If he didn't know about this other side to Caitlin's personality, then why did he change Mo's name on his phone and delete text messages in January. We also know that Strickland knew about a confrontation between Caitlin and Mo at the beginning of the year. Strickland did actually say that Armstrong and Wilson had a face-to-face interaction with each other at a cycling event in Arkansas in January. That's a matter of public record. Now, we know that an anonymous source said that Caitlin was so angry that she was shaking and that she threatened to kill Mo in January. This was several months after Caitlin and Strickland were on a break, and Strickland and Mo had had a fling, remember that. So if Strickland knew about this interaction, how did he not know about Caitlin's angry response? I mean, if he didn't know about the angry response, why would he have changed her number and deleted texts? Then he also told the Daily Mail, he said, quote, "I would say Caitlin is one of the least volatile people I've ever met, and that's why it's so absolutely shocking. She had sides to her personality that I don't think she shared with anybody," end quote. Now, what he's implying is that he was unaware of these volatile sides to her personality. But how many least volatile people do you know that shake with anger and make lethal threats, and then, in this case, actually seem to carry them out? Again, Strickland seems to be implying that he had no idea that Caitlin was upset about Mo, specifically in January when they came face to face at a cycling event where he was present as well. Now, I think there's an echo of this apparent innocent not knowing when the cops came knocking at 9:20, that's 9:20 in the morning after the incident. That was May 12th. Bear in mind, Caitlin was also home when the cops arrived, or one imagines that she was. And Strickland was potentially aware that she might be listening in as well. Now, that's an assumption. Maybe she wasn't at home. But if she was at home, you can imagine him being very careful to acknowledge that he knew Mo Wilson was in town, kind of thing. But we do know that Strickland originally acted as though he did not know who Wilson was, but then eventually admitted to knowing her, right? And what this suggests is that Strickland may at times be economical with the truth. And if he was economical with the cops, wasn't he economical with Caitlin about Mo, and with Mo regarding Caitlin? And hasn't he been economical to the public? Also, if Strickland had business interest with Caitlin, and if he knew she'd bought a burner phone, didn't they have contact while she was on the run? And do you remember Strickland himself disappeared for a while when Caitlin was still on the lam? So this is going back to the Daily Mail, and this is a quote from that. Quote, "Friends of Strickland, 35, have told Daily Mail that he fears becoming Armstrong's second victim and has got out of Dodge completely until she is caught. Close friend David, 42, of Lockhart, Texas, said, 'None of us can sleep. He's staying out of sight until she's caught. I do not know where he is, but I'm not mentioning where for his safety. He's not in Texas. He's got completely out of Dodge.'" And then the article goes on to say that Strickland has not confirmed those allegations himself. But what is made completely clear here is that he's gotten out of Dodge until she's caught. That's mentioned twice. But then Strickland popped back up in Austin on June 19th, 11 days before Caitlin was captured in Costa Rica. Now, if you imagine if your girlfriend or ex-girlfriend skipped town with $450,000 of your money, wouldn't you want to keep in touch with her about it? Wouldn't you want to know where she is and what's going on regarding the investigation? Wouldn't you be watching the news? Well, apparently Strickland didn't want to know because he was so traumatized. On June 20th, The Sun published some astonishing insights into Strickland, getting him to make a few rare but important public statements. This was specifically with reference to the important and, as it turned out to be, realistic suspicion that Caitlin might be posing as her sister Christine. Strickland was someone in a really good position to speculate on this issue, and so this was his reaction at the time. And it comes from The Sun, published on June 20th. Quote, "Asked if he believes the claims that Armstrong may be posing as her sister, Christine, Strickland said, 'How is that relevant to me?' End quote. Well, that's a very defensive answer to a simple yes or no question.
That's a yes or no question.
And so how does he respond to this question? Do you think that Caitlin is posing as Christine. He says, I'm working on effing cars all day, and that's what I'm doing. I'm not following the effing news. It's not in my realm of control. There's nothing I can do except drive myself crazy. That's really it, end quote. He preceded this response with, how is that relevant to me? Now, what's fascinating with the question is he's asked, what do you think about Caitlin posing as Christine? Then his response is, how is that relevant to me? Well, it might be relevant if he's communicating with her and he is aware of that, then it certainly is relevant. And perhaps he wants to know whether they know that. And then he is, instead of saying, I'm online, I'm emailing, I'm sending text messages, he says, you know what I'm doing all day? I'm working on cars. And then he volunteers to say, I'm not following the news. And later on, he also refers to the internet. Now, is that guilty knowledge, or is that him just being aggravated by what is being asked? I do think it's really an astonishing response, which is essentially non-responsive. Not only does he not answer the original question, but he appears to feign not having an interest in the news, information, or communication from someone whom he used to live with. Is that realistic? I mean, someone he had very close ties, even if they were business ties with, even if they were financial, he doesn't seem to be interested in any information about that at all. So this is also what he said. He said, I'm not reading a lot on the internet right now because I think it would further my emotional distress. So I'm not sure who the public are angry at. I can't speak to that. Now, there's a little concession here. First of all, him saying, I'm not reading a lot on the internet right now. He's not saying, I'm not on the internet at all. He's saying, I am reading on the internet, but just not a lot. And then he also says something about, I'm not sure who the public are angry at. And I can't speak to that. So that seems to be a reference to Christine and a very indirect way of saying, I don't have anything to say about that because I don't know about that. Are you sure about that, Colin? A recent warrant law enforcement have issued is likely to bring some certainty on whom Caitlin was in communication with when she left Dodge. In the meantime, I'll be doing a part 2 on Strickland, where we'll go into his backstory as an athlete and probe his psychology and try to get a better idea about his identity and the kind of person he is. Incidentally, within the last day or so, and since it's been in the news that law enforcement are following Caitlin's digital breadcrumbs, Strickland has set his Instagram to private. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.
I think what's going to go into place is, what did he know and did he try to cover it up?